I think most people, including Apple and myself, don't consider the MacBook Neo to be a laptop for creatives, but I actually think it's one of the most important laptops for the future of creators. Before I ever owned a laptop, like a lot of people, I started creating, more specifically video editing, off of a phone. I know phone software have gotten pretty good, especially recently, but I think it's always better working off of a laptop or computer. So I got the only laptop I could afford at the time, and I knew that could run a video editing software, and that was an 8-year-old MacBook Pro that I got for $550. And not just price-wise, I see a lot of similarities to the MacBook Neo. So I just want to talk about why I think the MacBook Neo is an important device for creators, the experience of using it with a handful of creative apps, the downsides of using it for those types of tasks, and why if you are looking for a device for creation, I would not recommend this. Now, the Neo to almost everyone who bought it will serve as a regular computer, being great for something like web tasks. And considering how the Neo broke a bunch of sales records and Apple even had to place an order on more chips for this laptop, it's in a lot of people's hands and a wide variety of them too. But where does this come in terms of creating? Well, I don't know about you, but for me, a good portion of the creators I watch are just regular people. No matter what you do in your life, what your hobbies or interests are, there is a niche community that you can make videos for and represent. Like recently, I was watching a guy whose job is to refill diesel pumps at gas stations. That's his whole account. Why do I have an interest in that? I don't know. I don't drive a diesel truck, but I was hooked. Like even for tech channels, there's some like mine where I focus more on the experience of using certain tech. But there's others where there could be someone who works in the field of tech, has about 100 times more knowledge than me, and focuses more on the technical aspects. And a creator like that would be successful not because of production quality, but because of their unique experience and perspective that other people just don't have. I think everyone has something worth sharing. And I also think now everyone, as in all different types of people, have something like the MacBook Neo, which gives you access to professional tools that can help you create and share things. A pretty powerful little setup is if you have the Neo and your phone, you can get something like the Blackmagic camera app, which is free and unlocks real camera controls that you just don't get in the regular camera app. And then on the Neo, you can get DaVinci Resolve, which is a professional video editing software, like genuinely professional. Hollywood uses it to color grade films. And it's also free. Of course, there's also software like Final Cut Pro, which is very well optimized because it's made by Apple. And if you just want like a simpler option, iMovie on macOS is pretty solid. But that setup in itself is capable, but actually might still be overkill for some, especially considering the fact that there are people that record and edit everything on their phone and are full-time creators. But it's the idea that you take the phone chip, you put it into a laptop, give it macOS, and it blows the doors open for what you can now do on it. So if you're getting into creation or filmmaking or production, or you just have a smidge of curiosity of what it would be like to create or create with professional tools, you have the option and access to do so now on a laptop you could very well already own that you bought without the intention to create on. So kind of like how I got an 8-year-old MacBook, I think the Neo is the newer and better starting point for a lot of creators. Now, yeah, I do edit on an M4 Max, so to seem the least amount out of touch as possible and to prove the Neo is capable enough, I'm going to be editing this entire video on the MacBook Neo, and then towards the end I'll kind of go over my experience doing so. I hope it's capable enough. But one of the downsides I will mention now is the screen size. Now, it only comes in the 13-inch option. It could be too small for some people. I actually kind of prefer it, but you can plug it into an external monitor. But I've actually found on its own, it makes for a really nice combination with my iPad. Now, this is no special iPad. I got this for $125 refurbished on Amazon. On its own, it's not the best, but when you connect it to the Neo with something like Sidecar, it not only becomes a second monitor, it also becomes a second monitor with touchscreen capability. Because this iPad is far too slow to run any kind of like Photoshop, Affinity photo type of app on its own, well, you can connect it to the MacBook Neo, get the full Mac OS version of those apps, and you can use the iPad as a touchscreen, so that's a pretty powerful and portable setup. But just like how the iPad's a good combination with the Neo, the sponsor of this video, Paperlike, is a great combination with the iPad. At least to me, the feel of writing on paper, I've always found a whole lot nicer than writing on any kind of tablet, but that's exactly what the Paperlike 3 sets out to deliver. It's a screen protector that uses nanodots, which is their micro technology that's designed to simulate the perfect amount of friction to kind of give that tactile, natural pen on paper feel. And for a big screen protector like this, there are a lot of opportunities for someone like me to mess up on, and I was actually pretty scared of that at first. But with their Butterfly application system, it really does make it easy. From using their helper tool to clean it and line it up, and later in the process remove all the air bubbles, to the easy to follow video guide, you're peeling back layer by layer, keeping the surface of the iPad sealed until it actually applies the screen protector itself. Of course, it is still a screen protector, so it's protecting your device, and it's also designed to protect the tips of something like your Apple Pencil, all while still delivering that signature paper feel. I found even with an older iPad, this is a nice little way to upgrade the user experience of it, so be sure to check out Paperlike with my link in the description. And thank you, Paperlike, for sponsoring this video. Now, to show off some of the different creative tasks, I'm gonna start with 3D here, a little bit of music production, photo editing, and of course, my bread and butter personally, video editing. Now, the extent of my 3D work is very basic VFX. I don't know if you can even consider it 3D. It's like popping up a screen recording in 3D space. And I guess back in the day, I did make some Fortnite thumbnails, which I used Blender for, and that's actually what I'm gonna be using here. Blender is a free app, and I feel like that kind of fits the theme here as far as accessibility. I think I can, yeah, like that. I can add a shape. That's almost everything I know. I mean, honestly, this might be just a more realistic perspective though, because people who are probably trying to use Blender on the Neo also don't really know what they're doing. I'm right with you. What is this? Particles. I can add some particles. It's actually playing back surprisingly smooth, although I know it's not textured or anything. Okay, I'm not exactly, pushing the limits of the Neo here. I couldn't even tell you what I'm doing, but this is running off of a phone chip. That's impressive. Okay, I used to play around with a bunch of lighting in here. I think I'm in the right mode. Let me try cranking up that light. Oh yeah, there we go. I can move it around. Look at that. I did something. Okay, since I don't know what I'm doing here, oh wow, that is lagging. This is a demo project that I found on Blender's website. Here, if I press play. Oh wow, yeah, okay, that completely froze. I mean, that's kind of fair. When I think the most demanding, graphically intensive thing, I think 3D animation. There is still enough power to play around with Blender though, but I think to not many people's surprise, you can get a taste, a crumb, but you're gonna be pretty limited when it comes to working with 3D. Now, like 3D, I unfortunately also have next to no experience with music production. I'm here in Logic Pro, which is not free, but they do offer GarageBand, which is the free alternative. So I just added a bunch of different sounds on this board here. Let's see how awful this sounds. It does bring a tear to my eye, just not in the good way. I'm gonna take whatever art I just made there, I'm just gonna copy and paste it in a bunch of different layers. And okay, I'm moving it around. There's a little bit of lag, but you can like skim it and pause and play it. I have a feeling for music production, for something like this, it's probably fine. It probably really starts to get bogged down once you're adding a bunch of different instruments, voice effects, audio effects, compression, plugins, all of that kind of stuff that is gonna rip through the CPU and the RAM, especially if your layers are real tracks and not as if a cat just ran across your keyboard. But for 3D and music production, you likely have more knowledge than me, so drop any insight you have in the comments. Let's all learn something together here. Now for photo editing, I'll be doing two different things here. The first one is taking raw photos from a couple of my cameras and just kind of seeing how smoothly it adjusts. And the second is taking a frame and making like a YouTube thumbnail style edit, which are two things I'm always doing. And for the app, I'll be using Affinity, which is completely free now. They made it free about 3 weeks after I spent $70 on it. First, I'm gonna take the raw photo from the main camera I use, which is the Sony FX3. As far as what I use in photo editing apps, I'm positive the Neo can handle it perfectly fine. I do think though, if you're a photographer with 1,000 pictures from a shoot and you have to sort through all of them and add presets to all of them and export all of them, that might kill the Neo. But for this raw picture, just adjusting the sliders, that looks pretty good. Unsurprisingly, it can handle it just fine. It's smooth. Now the FX3 actually only has 12 megapixel photos. It's actually not that good for photography. It's a video first camera. But if I import a picture from my Sony a6500, which has 24 megapixels, and actually there is a noticeable amount of detail once you zoom in here. I'm gonna go for more of a quick and dirty vintage kind of look here, adjusting the white balance, but yeah, everything is adjusting just as smoothly. But for the most challenging part yet, an iPhone picture. It's a picture of a banana. I'm not gonna even bother to try to adjust it because it's perfect as it is. But not to make a YouTube thumbnail style of edit, but I just added some text here. I'm gonna adjust the brightness and contrast a little, and I'm running out of things to say. It works, it's fine. But I'd consider everything, well, other than Blender, that I've just done to be more of like the lighter side of creation tasks, which does probably align better with people looking to use the Neo for those types of tasks. But what I biasedly think is most important is video editing, and that might ramp up pretty fast for the Neo. Okay, it's a new day, because to talk about video editing, I had to actually edit the video on the Neo, which I did. And because there are so many different ways you can be doing anything creative, it's hard to test to represent everyone. So the best I can really do is just work the way I usually work and use it as a baseline. This is in Final Cut Pro, and I did not hold back. I used the same exact footage, which is H.265, 4K, 24 frames, 422, 10-bit log footage. Now it's definitely more pro codec that is probably overkill for YouTube. But on the other hand, there are newer cameras that are below $1,000, like the Sony ZV-E10 II or the Canon R50V, that can shoot in that same exact codec. In terms of this first stage, the only differences I noticed between the Neo and my M4 Max was it was a bit less snappy to actually delete clips on the Neo, and the audio waveforms took a good bit longer to kind of load in when I'm zooming in and out and deleting and adjusting clips. Now I was on the better performance mode, which I would highly recommend, but right off the bat, I think it's safe to say if you recorded some phone footage on a hike or on a vacation or whatever, and you want to cut it up to a song that you like, the Neo will be able to shred through that no problem. Even while having apps like my Planning One Craft or a couple tabs open in a browser while listening to Spotify, it was good. As I progressed adding more B-roll and color adjustments and zoom animations and sound effects and music effects, it just got worse and worse. Little things like just adding a cut took longer. Pausing and playing was delayed. Sometimes the audio took a few seconds to even start playing at all after playback. And as soon as I added this effect here, which is popping up a screen recording kind of in the 3D space with a whole bunch of video effects layered on it, not only did the playback in this area get laggy, I mean, which is understandable, but I noticed that the YouTube podcast I was listening to, the audio of that also started to lag. There's even a few times where I just tried to play it. I saw the little spinning loading wheel and then nothing happened. And the only way to fix it was to quit Final Cut and reopen it. I will note, it didn't actually crash any more than Final Cut does on my M4 Max. Compared to my M4 Max, overall, I would say it's a 5 out of 10. But for like the first part of this, and if you're just cutting up clips, I would say it's a 9 out of 10, which, at least in my book, that's impressive. But for exporting videos, I would give it a 1 out of 10, and that is a courtesy 1, because it is able to export it. I was gonna break out my other MacBooks to compare the render speeds, but that defeats the entire purpose. Everyone knows the Neo isn't gonna be the fastest, but on its own, is it fast enough where it's manageable to work with? Rendering this video, which was 11 minutes and 40 seconds long at this point, took a whopping 4 hours and 2 minutes. That's excruciatingly slow. Like if you're editing for someone else or yourself and you realize a little mistake or someone wants a little change, you would have to wait that long again before you can send a video over. But I was curious, could I speed this up? Well, for one, if you're editing with phone footage or less heavy camera codec, working with 1080p, or just shorter, smaller videos, it's gonna be way faster. But again, I was editing with the footage stored externally, so I wanted to see if there's any render speed difference if I'm working from footage stored internally on the Neo or from one of these. I cut out a 30-second segment, color graded and all, and exported it from the external SSD, which took 31 seconds. Then I copied the same exact project over to the internal drive, unplugged the SSD, and exported that. That's much less of a difference than I was actually expecting. I thought part of the reason it was really slowing down exporting the 11-minute video was because it was getting the footage from an external drive instead of internally, so it was slower. But maybe it's just because it was a longer, bigger video with layers and layers of effects. I also took that same 30-second clip and added similar color adjustments in DaVinci Resolve, and also exported that from the internal SSD, which took 56 seconds. I do know that, at least for the M series MacBook chips, I don't know about the A18 Pro, but DaVinci Resolve is very well optimized for Mac hardware. In fact, in a lot of cases, it's neck and neck with Final Cut. It's very clear that there are downsides to using the Neo for creative work. But what are the biggest ones? Man, if this had 16, even 12 gigabytes of RAM, everything would be so much smoother, especially considering when this is exporting a video, it's a brick. When it's under a load like that, you just kind of gotta let it cook. Literally, because there's no fan on here. It has to crank down the power output to stop it from heating up as much. And of course, this comes at a cost of performance. But, leave it to the community to find ways to improve this. There's a lot of popular videos out there. Someone water-cooled a MacBook Neo. Salem Techsperts did whatever this is. But there's a really cheap $10 mod that, it's so easy, even I considered doing it. All you do is just unscrew the back. You put on a sticky thermal pad on where it gets hot, and that's it. What it does is takes the heat and spreads it across this entire bottom plate, more effectively distributing the heat. And people have seen 10 to 20% improvements on something like video rendering speeds, but I'm choosing not to do this. I've seen someone mention that since it's spreading out the heat, it's also heating up near components like the battery, which could degrade it quicker. I'm not exactly knowledgeable on if that's true or not, but I'd rather not risk it. Now, as I ran into, another downside with creative work is sometimes you could be working with large file sizes, and the Neo has a small internal storage. Mine is 256 gigs. The max you can get is 512 gigs. I think this is important to note for two main reasons. One is with swap memory, which essentially takes parts of the SSD and temporarily uses it as extra RAM. So it's important to leave a little bit of wiggle room on there just to make sure everything is smooth. Over time, this will wear the SSD down because it's constantly writing to it. But I think it's going to be a long time and likely out of most people's ownership window before you're really able to notice the degradation. The second reason is ports. If you want to connect more storage, you only really have one option. For any type of file transfer, you want to use that back one. In fact, Apple warns you when you're not using it. Now you can get a USB hub, which when you plug it into the good port, gives you more options. Luckily, the other port is still good for charging. No matter which port you plug into, it'll charge at the same rate. Battery life for the Neo in general is great, but when you start using it for these types of tasks, it exponentially starts draining faster. For about an hour and a half of video editing on just over 50% brightness, it drained 35% battery. Compared to the Intel i9 MacBook Pro that I recently made a video on, that drained 70% battery in 40 minutes. So the Neo really actually beats it out there. So who should buy the MacBook Neo for creative work? To be completely honest, I think the type of audience that would be able to take advantage of that little bit of extra power to just get you started with creation probably isn't watching this video right now. The Neo being able to run any creative software in itself is a luxury bonus, and I think should be treated as that. Now, if your budget is locked in the $500 to $600 range and you're looking to create things, I would say you kind of have to look at the used market. Reliability is hit or miss, especially depending on where you live. But in terms of bang for the buck, you could get something like the M1 14-inch MacBook Pro for $500 to $600, and that's going to be way better in pretty much every single way for a laptop. There's options like the Mac Mini. If you already have a monitor and keyboard and mouse, that I think for a long time has been one of the best value computers. The Neo won't be perfect for creators, but it's not meant to be. And what I can say for sure is it won't stop you from starting. And that's what's most important. So thank you for watching, and feel free to subscribe for more.